Hi everyone, I'm Joe Lagilia, and on this episode of Not Your Average Joe, powered by Mortgage Message, we're talking to Tara Mozden of Lincoln Grows. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Not Your Average Joe, powered by Mortgage Message. My name is Joe Lagilia, and today I'm joined with Tara Mozden of Lincoln Grows. Tara, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Joe.
Absolutely. So, Tara, you've been a longtime friend. I've been blessed to have you as a neighbor. We've actually worked together as well in the professional setting. But just for anyone who's meeting you for the first time, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell everybody what you do.
Sure thing. My name is Tara Mozden, and I'm a landscape designer here in Plainfield, and I teach music together here in Plainfield and Oswego, depending on the season. I am your neighbor. I'm a member of a bunch of different organizations that we'll talk more about in this episode.
Wonderful. I want to get right into one of those organizations because there's so much behind your volunteerism, and I firmly believe that that's one of the main reasons that a lot of people nominated you because of just you being everywhere. And I want to start with one of those places that you are and have been, which is Lincoln Grows. Yes. And just to kind of tee this up for you, when this idea was presented to me as far as a group of people in the community that wanted to do something more, and I'll leave it at that for you to explain, but this has been something that has directly affected my family, my kids in such an unbelievable positive way, and there's so many that echo that. So please, if you can, tell everybody what Lincoln Grows is.
Sure thing. Lincoln Grows started as a movement to get an outdoor classroom in Lincoln Elementary here in Plainfield. A little girl wrote a letter to the principal saying that she really wanted to be outside more and she wanted to have a garden. And while there's landscaping around the school, I wouldn't really call it a garden. And so and it was just a few months that it took this to snowball into Lincoln Grows. As a landscape designer, I took a lot of pride in creating a space that touched not only the visual senses of the people in a garden, but the physical touch, that children can go and physically touch these plants. They're not going to break them. That they can walk in and around these plants. They have a space to be. In the classroom, it's different. You have 4 walls and a ceiling and a lot of chairs and a lot of noise and a lot of kids. And for some students, that's A-okay. They like that. But for some students, they need to be in a bigger space. And the outdoor classroom gave teachers the ability to take these students into this bigger space. And so when I was designing Lincoln Grows in the outdoor classroom, Vanessa Sula and Kelly DeVolder were huge helps because they did a lot of the research on what kids need outside. I took care of what plants would live there, what plants will tolerate the sun and shade there, what plants will tolerate children, because not every plant does. And while I took care of that aspect, those 2 women took care of, the educational background of it and the why and the how of why we're outside. So when we installed Lincoln Grows, that I feel was one of the biggest community endeavors that Lincoln Elementary has ever seen. We had over 60 volunteers out there helping us that day, digging holes. Sorry.
That's okay.
It really tapped into my heart because it was so beautiful to see people helping. And at the end of the day, not everybody sees this every day at all. The students, if you had a student who was a 4th grader or 5th grader when we installed this garden, they're gone. They're at another middle school. But if you had a little one who was 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, or even like Evie who wasn't quite there yet, your students get to experience this outdoor classroom. And while some teachers don't take every single day to go outside because it's a lot of work to get the kids moving. I mean, anybody with kids knows you don't just say, let's go do this, and you immediately are there. It's a lot of prep and you got to get the shoes on and the coats on in the winter, and you got to make sure everybody has a lineup. But when the teachers do get outside, it's just amazing. And so from my point of view, anytime that I can help a group, whether it's the teachers, the students, or the parents, anytime I can help a group make their world better in just even the smallest way, it makes me happy.
Well, I really love the emotion because, again, from the perspective that you're speaking of, realizing the amount of effort, especially coming from a very highly educated, very trained professional such as yourself, understanding what those services would cost for landscape design, understanding all of it, and all you saw was an opportunity to make our community better and to make it be a better experience for our kids and their development. And it means so much to so many who I know are watching right now, because we will be directly affected by this, and generations to come will be affected by this. And I think that's really such a premise of what the show is about. And I got to say this because, for me, when you think of our own childhood, and you think of one of the favorite classes that you would always run home and tell mom and dad, you would always say recess.
Oh, yeah.
And I think incorporating, it seems so clear and obvious 6 inches from our nose now that we're here, now that all the heavy lifting has been done by you and so many part of Lincoln Grows. But taking the recess model, but also incorporating the education side into it, as opposed to just physical education, which is of course important. It's an unbelievable thing that we hope is mirrored, duplicated, copied, echoed across not just our Plainfield community, but elsewhere. Kind of just speak about what your vision for what Lincoln Grows could be moving forward on that respect.
Sure. There's two different paths that need to be taken, and a single person doesn't have to take both paths. You can choose one or the other. First, the biggest focus, I think, for me is that Lincoln Grows right now where it's at, it needs volunteers to help pull weeds. At the most basic level, entry-level volunteerism, come out for a half hour. Bring your kids. I know a lot of people live near the school in that neighborhood. And where any venture, I think, falters, and whether it's the short term or the long term, it's the stewardship of that venture. Whether it's a business that you've built, and sometimes it just doesn't breathe life into that venture as long as you want because there's just, the care isn't there or the time isn't there. And I get it, everyone's so busy. But if we can all do a little bit to help with Lincoln Grows, no one has to do a lot. So on the very entry level, I would implore anybody who goes to Lincoln, show up and pull some weeds. If you're not sure what a weed is, I will send you my phone number. You text me a picture of it and say, Tara, can I pull this? And then it just comes to education, educating everybody around you. And so once you can get that stewardship model working and working fluidly, and it has worked in other places, it can be done. It's not unattainable. You take that model, and I would love to see Lincoln Grows at Wallen Oaks Groves and Eagle Point grows and Ira Jones grows. Every middle school, elementary school, up to the high school level could have their own name your school grows. Yeah. Because as it says, it's grow time. And I feel like we all need to grow a little bit to make a big impact.
And to your point, shout out to Lincoln for being innovative and the decision makers and leadership behind them to be the first, so to speak, in this part of the community to say, yeah, let's embrace this idea, let's bring it in. I mean, just a real quick antidote, if you can, how was that working with the leadership on that level?
They were amazing. They were welcoming of our ideas. The principal, Mr. Hartman, was a huge advocate for us. He was like, yeah, if the teachers want it, I want it. He goes, if it's going to benefit the kids, let's do it. And even the school board, you have to run everything by them for good reasons. And, there were probably many times someone could have just said, no, it's going to be too hard. Or, no, never been done before. Yeah. But you know what? We did it. And I'm so happy that we did, because now, like you said, this is a good model. We can see where this can go.
Well, and I hope leadership that's watching, or individuals that are connected to leadership that are watching, they see this as that example that it is doable, and to think of how can we do this first. Looking at that example of your volunteerism, and you've been so gracious of mentioning all the people who've been behind it. I also know You're a part of 2 PTAs locally. You are a part of our, and have been for so long, our homeowners association. And of course, we have much love for the Kiwanis Club here in Plainfield that you're a part of as well. I think looking at that resume, so to speak, of community service, where does your inspiration come from to take that time to give back in the way that you do?
It's hard to answer that in a way because I never saw myself as a big volunteer. I never went out for like the book club in school. I didn't go out for student council. I played sports. That was my team. And you know what, now that I'm saying this out loud right now, I'm realizing I miss being part of a team. It's one of those as a kid. I played softball, I played field hockey, I played basketball. It was just, you were always with like-minded people out for the same goal. Obviously, I don't play sports right now. I mean, I play catch with my sons when they ask, but I think that's probably why I am a part of these things.
Well, and I'm excited that we kind of had this revelation right here on the show because in reflecting of this interview with you, and we were saying before we went live here, so many synergies exist between us because I also would categorize myself in the same boat, that kind of the person who I am today wasn't necessarily something that was carried with me in my youth. And I think that I share that with you, that it's that team effort. It's that how can we join together for a common goal? Yeah. And I've heard you say this before as well. It's also about saying what kind of community do we want our kids to be in? And can we be the change we want to see?
So that is a huge lead-in to one of the reasons why I participate how I can, when I can, with PTAs and with Kiwanis, for example. As a parent, there's a lot of things that happen during the school day for my kids or throughout our community for families and for individuals. Almost all of that happens because someone somewhere stepped up and said, I'll donate my time, or I'll donate this case of soda, or I'll donate these snacks, or I'll donate money to put forward. Your kid has a book fair at school, and that's great. You send money with them, hopefully, and if not, they get a chance to be around books. That's great. But who do you think sets up the book fair? Who do you think helps kids with the money during the book fair, especially in the elementary realm? Who do you think works the cash register? Volunteers do. And I totally get it. When my kids were little, like even Evie and Will's age for you and younger, I didn't volunteer an ounce because I just couldn't do it.
We were just trying to make it to the end of the day.
I was trying to make it till my husband came home.
That's right.
And I was like,
yeah,
I'm out.
Right.
But as the kids have gotten older, I have a little more time, and I have realized too that as my kids get older, I want them to see a world that doesn't just revolve around them. Yes, they're a part of all these things, but these things do not happen independently or without help. So volunteering, I feel like, should be a part of everyone's life in some capacity, whether that's your time physically in the event or it's your time behind the scenes to maybe set up the sign-up genius. Maybe you're really good on computers and maybe you can help with the website, or you can help with the Facebook post or whatever. Or maybe you just want to give your money. And believe me, any organization will take that.
No doubt.
That's fine. Because at the end of the day, you have invested a part of yourself in something beyond your little bubble. And I feel like as humans, we need that. We need this connection. We need to be able to say that we're a part of something. And when we're so closed off, and I know, the pandemic really hobbled us like a bunch. And I know we're slowly climbing out of that deep pit, and we need to get back to doing things for others and with others, and volunteering is really just the best way to do that.
I love it. As you're speaking, I'm reminded of that quote from Mr. Rogers where he said as a boy he would see things in the news and his mom would say, always look for the helpers. There's always going to be helpers, and I hear you saying that, and I think it's great. It's a great encouraging word that you're providing to someone who's watching, who, as you said, whether it's because of the season of life, or whether it's because, and I say this because I think it happened to me. I think, somebody came alongside of me when I first came to Plainfield, tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, there's an organization that I think would love to have your gifts and talents if you'd like to come check it out." And I think maybe this video can be that invitation, but I truly believe there's a lot of people that don't even really know what's out there.
And that is so true. I didn't know. I mean, you always hear about the PTA, and you have those like horror stories. The movies that portray PTA as like this worst thing in the world.
Absolutely.
You know what? I've been really active in the elementary PTA at Lincoln because I had 2 boys there, and I was at a time of life where I had extra time. I'm still somewhat active in the elementary PTA, but not nearly as much. And my oldest one's at Ira Jones. So wrote my $8 check for the PTA to be on, Ira Jones PTA. And so far, that's all I've done. Right. And if that is all you end up doing to be on the PTA board, that is okay. Take baby steps. Best case scenario, the money that you've written that check for the PTA, that money goes to help fund events at school. So good job. You've done it. If you want to take another little step and maybe sign up for one event, great. If we all do a little bit, then no one has to do everything. And I think that's kind of been forgotten because people, and I've been guilty of this too, you're a part of a group or a club or an organization, and you kind of see no one else is pitching in, so you double time it, triple time it, quadruple time it. Now you're burnt out, but all everybody else sees is that no one else needs to pitch in because you got it. That's right. But you don't. So don't do everything. Leave space for people to step in hesitantly, but then welcome them, even if they are hesitant. They may not stay. That's okay. I mean, you don't have to love everything you join. You can say no. And I think that's one thing that I've had to learn a bunch. You can say no. People will still like you. It's okay.
Well, and I think it's just such a great tagline for the interview of sharing, in summary, what you're saying, which is just many hands make light work. And we see that, and I think it's a good little segue for the interview to just ask, in your many years of volunteerism, many years of finding out how to lift up this community, which you've done, Tara, so eloquently. What's a couple stories, or just even one story that comes to mind of just an incredible, rewarding moment through volunteering?
Ooh, there's a couple. It's hard to pick just one, but I will probably share the feeling because they all give me the same feeling. And it's when, goodness, again,
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's when someone looks at you and they just say thank you. And looking back, you're like, well, I didn't do that much. I didn't do a ton. I just helped. And that's all you need to do.
Well, we have you here in this interview to say exactly that, which is thank you. And we are just so grateful to have you in our community. I'm so grateful to call you a friend and a neighbor. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for you, because I feel as though you're somebody that sees the world in a way that is be the change that you'd like to see. And I love being connected to people like you because it inspires me and you inspire so many. And on that note, as we like to do here, since this is a real community hero show and you've been nominated as one, who is your hero?
My hero, my mom and dad. They've made me who I am. They've supported me. They've corrected me. They've guided me by example. I wouldn't be here without them. I mean, obviously biologically, but just from a reason of helping where you can. Leave your world a little better than how you found it. There's always, oh, I don't have to do that. Or I don't have to pick that up. I don't have to touch that. Well, if it makes it a little bit better than how you found it, just do it. It costs you nothing. But it pays dividends too. everyone around you.
Absolutely love it. Tara, thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
And thank you to our audience for tuning in to another episode of Not Your Average Joe, powered by Mortgage Message. We'll see you next week, everyone. Take care.
Hi, I'm Tara Mozden with Lincoln Grows. I was just a guest on Not Your Average Joe. If you know anyone in our community who is a hero, we'd love to hear their story.